Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day, and above all else, that you're looking after yourselves and one another. Ladies and gentlemen, uh, the term "flipping the script" for this episode doesn't even apply. We're throwing out the script completely. Before we get into the title of the show and what we're doing here, I'd like to welcome back to the channel Mr. Jim Brecker. How's it going, Jim?
I'm doing well, Armando. Thanks for having me back.
Always a pleasure. And we are welcoming to the channel for the very first time Mr. Chad Sutton. How's it going, Chad?
Pretty good, thanks, and thank you for having me as well.
Always a pleasure to have new people on, and hopefully this will be one of many shows we'll do together. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to What's Up, Doc. Okay, as I said, we are throwing the script out the bloody window, and we are going to be ranking our top 10 Looney Tunes cartoons. Okay, now, everybody out there, I don't care how old you are, okay, at some point in your life, you've watched cartoons, right? Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd, Sylvester, doesn't matter. Daffy Duck, it doesn't matter. What we have done is we have taken a list of our top favorite 10 cartoons, and we are going to give them to you during this episode tonight. So, as I was always brought up right by my mama, I'm going to let my co-host go first. So who do I pick? Let's go with the man
Well,
of the hour.
oh, no, 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 no. I want to defer to Chad. I want to defer to the super guest.
You want the newbie to go first? How's that,
I,
Chad? You want to go first?
I will gladly go first. So,
Okay.
yeah, thank you. Let me preface my first pick by saying that I chose my 10 episodes, not in any necessary ranking of, worst to best, but just my 10 favorite Looney Tunes cartoons. I'm gonna do mine in chronological order. I feel like just based on the years of my 10, I'm firmly like a golden era fan, apparently. Mine span from
Actually,
1942 to 1957.
okay. Actually, before we begin, why don't we just quickly discuss how did you get into watching Looney Tunes cartoons? Just, you know, how far back? Like,
Wow, so I'm 52, and as long as I can remember from being a little kid, watching them on Saturday mornings on TV, my brother and sister were huge Bugs Bunny fans. Bugs Bunny sayings, expressions, jokes, songs, Looney Tunes oeuvre in general, just sort of, we're part of our regular household vernacular.
definitely. Yeah, I can see that. Okay, what about you, Jim?
Pretty similar to Chad. I got a few more years on the youngster over there, but yeah, for me it was all about Saturday mornings, and then after school, cable channels would do, the kind of the older Looney Tunes, the stuff that was more in public domain, um, the late 30s and
The
the early
Vitaphone,
to mid
yeah,
40s stuff. Yeah.
Vitaphone.
And yeah, I didn't have brothers and sisters to kind of bounce that all off of. I saved that all until I had children of my own, and then I gave them a proper education, as it is the responsibility of a father to do, darn it, and make sure they understood the good quality cartoons in life, so they wouldn't go around thinking strawberry shortcake was the bee's knees.
Oh, sweet
So
Jesus. Okay. All right. I
uh,
get it. Yeah. No, for me, just quickly, I much like you, Jim, it was like, Saturday morning cartoons, and there was a show called the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Hour, or and that was a compilation of these cartoons that was on the local station in Toronto on Global TV in Toronto on Saturday afternoons at 5 o'clock, right? Um, so yeah, they just stuck with me, and I never grew up. Like I still watch them today. So, but yeah, no, that's great. Okay, now we're going to get into our top 10. Sorry, guys. And again, as I see on my screen, I'm going to pass again the virtual mic down to Chad, and he's going to give us his number 10.
All right, so my number 10, and again, I'm going in chrono order here. So I'm going to start with 1942's The Wabbit Who Came to Supper. starring Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. This
Mhm.
is the one where Elmer Fudd inherits a lot of money from a dead uncle, Uncle Wooey. And hilarity ensues because the conditions, the stipulation on him getting the money is he's never allowed to harm an animal, especially rabbits. So who shows up to torment Elmer, of course, but Bugs Bunny.
Okay.
as
Okay.
he's wont to do. Is that a who directed that one? Is that Frelling or
That's Frelling. So help me out with pronouncing his first name. I know his real name was Isidore, but is it
Frizz.
Frizz? Frizz?
Frizz.
Okay, it wasn't
I think
Fritz.
so. Yeah,
No,
I
it
think
was
it's
Okay,
Frizz.
Frizz.
just
Frizz.
Frizz. Okay, yeah. So it's a Frizz Frailing. And of note in that episode is um, Bugs stops halfway through a chase scene to answer the phone,
Oh
and
yeah.
he says, "Is that you, Mert?" Which was actually a bit that they lifted from Fibber McGee and Molly, which was a popular radio show in the 30s and 40s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yep,
That's,
I remember that one. It took
that's
me a
cool.
minute, but as you started to describe it, it's like, oh yeah, it all
It clicked
started
in,
coming
yeah, for
back.
me as well. It clicked in when yeah, the answering the phone. Yeah, that's when it clicked in.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Jim, you're on
Moi.
10.
Yep. So I, like a masochist, actually did rank them, and boy, I might get a lot of heat for this. And there's so many that I left on the cutting room floor. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So this would be like my top 10 for now. And you ask me tomorrow, it's probably going to change. I might even call an audible in the middle of this episode and sneak one in. I don't know. Uh, but for me, I was going for the ones that I guess for me that had the biggest appeal just in terms of laughs. And a lot of that comes down to the writing. Um, Obviously, being a former professional cartoonist, there's a lot to the artwork in it that appeals to me. But for me, it kind of came down more to, what makes me laugh, what has the best timing in terms of the gags, and then from the overall direction of the cartoon. So kind of from the artsy standpoint.
Mm.
And my list also starts with Frizz. And so my number 10 is 1946 Baseball Bugs, which I'm pretty sure we all know. Now, normally I'm not the biggest Frizz fan, but I have always appreciated his impeccable timing in gags. Um, the stuff that he would do on the stairs with Yosemite Sam and Bugs Bunny, or just the high wire, you know, jump from the platform down to the tank of water stuff that he would do with Yosemite
Yeah.
Sam
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Elmer or whomever. Just priceless in his timing, really, really good.
Hmm.
Um, the thing about baseball bugs is that it's just there's the whole thing is iconic throughout this. It just starts and ends perfectly, and everything in between. It just hits all the right beats. The thing that really stands out about this for me, though, is that I think this is the one where Frelling kind of discovers the formula that kind of unlocks Bugs Bunny for forever, which is that whole idea that you take this mild-mannered bunny and you put him in some kind of extraordinary situation where he's put upon by a bunch of bullies or a single bully.
Hmm.
And I think Chuck Jones would be the one that perfects this scenario, but I think Frelling was the first one to kind of unlock just that within Bugs and just make him explode and just make him such a perfect protagonist from that point out.
Yeah. It's almost like it's a challenge for him when he gets put in the corner, or when he gets put in the corner, or when he feels like he's being uh, ridiculed or chased, he sort of gains another dimension of strength and just pushes back and outwits. I mean, it's a cartoon. I understand all that.
And he does it with such cool and
Yeah.
aplomb. Who
Yeah,
wouldn't want to be Bugs Bunny when he handles things the way that he does?
of
And
course.
I'll have much more to say about that later.
Of course.
I
That's
will
cool.
too.
That's
One
cool.
of my picks later, it's sort of the contrast between Bugs and Daffy that really stands out for me. And one of my picks, I won't spoil it now.
Yeah, it's Wabbit season. Okay. All right. Duck season. Wabbit, never mind. I can go into this all night. Anyways, my number 10 is To Duck or Not to Duck.
Oh, I know that title.
Yeah.
1943, directed by Robert McKimson. This is where uh, uh, Daffy Duck is, flying overhead. He's going south, and he gets shot by Elmer Fudd, the hunter. He gets shot in the tail, and he, does this old, oh my, I've been hit. Oh, and he falls. He just, you know, hits the ground, and um, uh, Lattimore, the dog, carries him to, you know, to Elmer, and all hell breaks out, like he's thinking, and basically they end up in a boxing ring, and
Yeah.
Elmer
Oh,
Elmer
yes,
versus
yes.
Elmer versus Daffy, and you get the announcer, in this corner, he's trying to introduce him. He's laughing his head off, right? Like laughing his ass off, big time. It's like, oh, what a card! What a dog! That kind of thing. And then he introduces Daffy. It's like, oh, the paragon of virtue. The one who is kind to his mother, Daffy Duck. And then all hell breaks out, and it's like it's hilarious, right? I mean, I mean, it's obviously very, 1943. It's not the best, in terms of color use and stuff, because it's very faded at this point, but it's great. I mean, and the thing with doing these lists, ladies and gentlemen watching, and I hope you are, and I know you are, it's very hard to put these in order as to what's number 10 and what's number 5.
Oh, yeah.
And just because one of our picks is at number 10, it does not mean that we don't like it any less. It's just, again, when you do these lists, you got to put them somewhere, right? But when I was looking at my list, it's like, okay, yeah, this is going to go down here. Yeah, so that's my number 10. To duck or not to duck.
Nice one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love that one.
yeah. All right, down to Chad for his number 9.
All right, my number 9, Case of the Missing Hair, 1942, directed by Chuck Jones. This is the one that features Alabama, the magician. Just saying it out loud makes me giggle every time.
Yeah, okay.
This is the magician who, nails a poster over the Bugs' hole in the tree, and of course, Bugs is incensed by this and just, sets off to make this guy's life a living hell, right? And sort of disrupts his show. So for me, this episode, it just has Bugs outsmarting somebody, right? And really just messing with the guy just on sheer principle.
Mhm.
Which I think is like we said, the essence of Bugs Bunny's personality. But two catchphrases that I don't know if they were the first utterances by Bugs in this cartoon, but of course you realize this means war.
Mm.
And on the contrary, I've got you.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And again,
Mhm.
but both of those phrases, just, in my childhood. I mean, we'd be talking and, somebody'd say, "Oh, I got this," or "I got you." Oh, no, on the contrary, I've got you.
There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah, yeah. And of course you realize this means war. That's almost like the trigger that gets Bugs going. It's like, okay, there's no going back. He's like, flip the switch and he's gonna go
That's
after
it.
whoever it is. And yeah,
Exactly.
that's cool. That's cool. All right.
All
Junior.
right, my number 9. This will be the first appearance in our little discussion of Bob Clampett and the crazy Bob Clampett. There's two of his on my list. This is the Big Snooze from October 1946, one of the final cartoons he did for Warner Brothers. This is the one where Elmer is just fed up of like running through a log the whole time and having Bugs spin
Oh,
it, so he goes off
Yes.
the cliff, and Elmer just kind of comes out the other side finally and says, "That's it, I quit. I give up. Mr. Warner, here's what I think of your contract. I'm going fishing." and Bugs is like, you can't do this. You can't break up the act and all this stuff. But Elmer goes off in a huff, ends up finding a waxing fishing hole, and then decides to take a nap. And then Bugs decides to invade his dream. And that is where things go horribly awry. This one of the earliest psychedelic things I've ever seen in my life is the dream sequence where it's the rabbits are coming, hooray, hooray, the rabbits are coming,
Oh
hooray.
yeah.
And it's just all these bouncing up and down rabbits, and it's this black background and these just very skinny multicolored bunnies just jumping up and down on Elmer, who's in basically a like a flowered loincloth and his derby hat, and he's just getting pounced by Bugs and all these things. And then he's tied to a railroad track, and the
I
super
forgot about
chief of
that
little
one. Super
bunnies
Chief.
comes over him. And
I forgot
um
about that one. Holy jeez.
it's the thing about Clampett's cartoons is that usually they're just manic. I mean, Tex Avery, of course, was crazy, but Clampett took it to a whole nother level of just like, what in the heck is going on here? It's like
Mhm.
all these characters just were like barely on the edge of sanity. And what's also interesting about Clampett is the way he designs and directed his cartoons. If you've ever watched them carefully, there's a lot of time where the characters take up like the entire real estate of the screen.
Yeah.
A lot of directors would kind of have this thing where it's like, a shot from, chest up, kind of like what we are. But there are a lot of times where Clampett will just squeeze the entire body in there and contort them so that
Yeah.
they're just in
Yeah.
these positions where they're talking to each other and their heads are cocked, and it's just this really strange way of putting everything together. But if y'all are not familiar with Bob Clampett, the Big Snooze is a crazy way to start. Highly recommended. It is very wacky, wacky Wabbit cartoon for sure.
Yeah. I forgot about that one. Holy jeez. Okay.
I think there's going to be a lot of those for all of us where it's like, oh, I hadn't thought about that one in
Yeah. Yeah.
days. Yeah.
No, it's true. It's true. But that's what's great about these lists, right? I mean, it's just our opinion, and they're fun. I mean, these cartoons, bottom line is they're fun. But
They're fun, but we'll come
yeah.
to blows.
Yeah.
I expect it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
All right. My number 9, ladies and gentlemen, is One Froggy Evening. 1955, directed by Chuck Jones. This is where we have a singing frog.
Yes. Love
Michigan
that one.
J.
Where the construction worker comes across his box, this mysterious box on the job site that he's on, and all of a sudden he looks at the box, the lid flips open, and this frog jumps out, grabs his top hat and cane, and starts singing, hello my baby, hello my dog, and doing the dance and all that. And he's like looking around going, what the hell is, he's like, what is this? So he's thinking he can make some fast money, with the singing frog. Every time someone else is around, the frog won't do jack. You know what I mean? And basically, he is deemed a nutcase because he's trying to convince everyone, look, this frog can sing. And all the frog does when anyone else is around is like ribbits, right? Can't do it myself, but it's just hilarious, right? I just find it hilarious, and he tries everything he can to get people to realize that this frog is actual a talking frog and singing and all that. And he loses his life savings. He's destitute on the street, and he basically leaves him in the building that he was working on the construction site. And many centuries later, another worker finds him while they're disintegrating this building for demolition, whatever. And cycle happens all over again. This guy thinks that he can, get some money, and that's where it ends, right? The fade out happens where the frog is singing in the box. from the beginning of the cartoon. I just thought it was an ingenious idea to do that, right?
Oh
To have
yeah.
that idea, right? From Chuck Jones, and just it was just spot on in terms of the use of color. It's very sharp, you know, in terms of compared to the earlier cartoons, you know, from the 30s and 40s. I just, you know, I love the cartoon. So, but it is my number 9, right? So,
That is the cartoon where I learned that the words free beer are a draw for people.
oh, okay, okay. See, I didn't even pick up on that, but I like the music and you know, like the whole idea of the cartoon itself. You know, a guy
Oh
literally
yeah.
losing his life savings and becoming a bum because he's got, you know, of what was going on. So, yeah, that's my number 9. One Froggy Evening from Chuck Jones, 1955. All right,
Brilliant.
Yeah, love it.
down to Chad.
All right, next up for me is 1943's Yankee Doodle Daffy, another Friz Frayling production or direction rather. This one is the only one in my top 10 that does not feature Bugs Bunny. This one's a Daffy Duck Porky Pig cartoon. So it starts out with Porky Pig, who owns a talent agency, trying to sneak away, I guess, for a vacation or an early weekend or, you know, whatever it is. And as he's leaving the office, Daffy Duck just sort of runs over him to get back into the office and drags him back through the door and says, "You got to see this act, you know, before you do anything else." And he's
Mm.
dragging this little kid duck with like a hat and a lollipop, a big lollipop, you know, like comically large. And Daffy proceeds to just do the kid's whole act while the kid sits on the couch and just sort of, you know, just
Mm.
sort of stares and smiles sweetly and licks the lollipop. And at the very end, of course, you know, we find out that the kid really does have talent, but poor Porky Pig goes through the ringer in the meantime. Um, can we talk about music since, you know, Armando, you just mentioned that with the Hello My Baby, that whole bit. Carl Stalling, who every cartoon that I watched in preparation for this, and I think I watched 20 or 30 or more, I don't think there was another music director.
I don't believe so. No.
Yeah, at
No.
least not during this era of Warner
Right.
Brothers or of Looney Tunes, right? And the guy was just a genius. I mean, beyond compare.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
agree.
There's a couple of CDs out there called the Carl Stalling Project. One of them is um, the first one is kind of like they kind of snip kind of the greatest hits of various different Carl Stalling cartoons and put them together into like themed compositions. The second one is, I think, a little less successful than the first because it's just like the audio from almost, you know, three or four or five whole cartoons. It's less manic than than the first CD, but they're highly recommended because as a composer, he was just nuts. Very much of the Raymond Scott school, if not broader, in terms of what Stalling would put together. And then just plus, he had his partner in crime, Milt Franklin,
Yeah.
who put together all the arrangements and the orchestrations, and that's probably 70% of the work of
Yeah.
just trying to figure out how to stage this stuff and have it come off as perfectly as it does. But yeah, good call out.
Yeah.
And you have
It's
these
true.
like tropes in the music, like you've got xylophones in an ascending pattern when somebody's running up the stairs, and then same characters like Ike, yeah, yipes, and then they run back down the stairs, and it goes the
Yeah.
same thing back down the scale
Yeah.
or whatever. So yeah, to your point, Jim, like just somebody had to think that all up and write it out, and you know, and sort of conduct and music direct it. And just how they wove in popular songs of the day with older songs that were just, you know, classics or standards. And then, you know, we see a little further along in the productions, classical music being brought in and not whole pieces,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
Stalling and his cohort there had to sort of slice and dice these things, right? These sort of massive classical works to fit a 7 minute cartoon, and they did it like
Right.
such
Yeah.
brilliance.
I mean, there's no doubt here. The work on these cartoons from basically from start to finish. Very sophisticated work, very, very smart and very
Yeah.
intelligent use of music and different genres in terms of the time, right? Are you talking classical later on? I think I think you're right. I think they're brilliant the way they do it. Very intelligent way of using all these elements together, right? And they worked. Everything to me, everything in these cartoons worked.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. And the Frelling, of course, was a huge classical music fan, and Jones was a big opera fan, and those, greatly influenced, a lot of their cartoons. So
Mhm.
the having those great minds kind of working together and just to try to come up with something that would make them laugh. I mean, that was the thing, is that they were trying to do cartoons that would make them laugh as adults. They
Right.
weren't dumbing stuff down just because they wanted to entertain kids. No, remember, these cartoons were in between, movies that you would see
Yeah.
on Saturdays at the cinema.
Yeah.
So they had to
Exactly.
play for everyone and they had to work. So
Exactly.
um, just one more comment on that Carl Stalling project CD, if people can find it or stream it or whatever, even just the very first track on that, which is, I think, like 3 or 4 different takes of one sound cue from the cartoon Putty Tat Trouble, is just this manic 13-second piece that goes all over the place with strings and percussion and bassoons and harp, and it's just this manic wild thing of I don't know what it's doing in the cartoon. Sylvester's falling down the stairs or dealing with a wild ferret that comes out of a hat. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's that sort of manic spinning
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Highly recommended.
You know what? I'm gonna check that out. I'll probably try
Yeah.
and find it on YouTube.
Is that
All
our
right.
first tangent?
Yeah, one of many probably coming up. You never know, right?
Probably. Yep.
Okay.
Tangents are us.
Yes.
Number 8 for me, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Again, sticking with Bob Clampett, another one of his crazy ones. This is The Old Gray Hair from 1944. And in this particular one, uh, it starts off with Elmer just sitting under a tree sobbing because he tries and tries and tries and he can't catch that screwy wabbit. And then the voice of God comes and encourages Elmer, try again. And then it's like, how long will I have to try? And he says, let me take you far into the future. And they get to the year of like 2000, very far into the future, right?
Oh, God.
And this is where you see geriatric Elmer and geriatric Bugs going after each other. And the thing about this, I mean, that's just crazy enough as it is. But then in one part where I'm laughing just thinking about this, is that where Bugs gets shot by Elmer's big ray gun, you know, Bugs is going through his death throes and he like pulls out this photo album. It's like, remember, you keep this, this is back from when we were kids. And then you see baby Elmer and baby Bugs going after one another. So the cartoon, it starts in the present day, goes way into the future, and then goes way back to when they were babies.
Yeah.
And then it ends up back with, in 2000 where Elmer's gonna bury Bugs, and then Bugs turns the tables on him and starts burying Elmer alive, and he's like, "So long, Methuselah!" And it's just this is just that crazy sense of Clampett, is that it's one thing to take it and go all the way into the future, but then while you're in the future to go all the way back into the past. I mean, that's just nuts. You like
Yeah.
you just keeps upping the ante in insanity. And I just gotta say it, baby Bugs, baby Elmer, they're both really, really cute. I gotta leave it at that.
I love in
Okay.
that one where it's mid chase and Bug says, "Oh, gotta stop. Nap time for babies."
Yeah.
That's right.
And they just like hit the ground and take a nap.
Yeah.
Again, you
Okay, we're
mentioning
done.
ones. You're mentioning ones that I forgot existed. But it's good. It's good. All right.
May this session of ours drive a whole bunch of people back to those 6 big Warner Brothers volumes that came out, those golden collections.
Yes, yes. And I've got all of them. Guys, my number 8 is Water, Water Every Hair.
Yes. Love that
And
one.
I thought this was going to be higher up on the list. Again, 1952, directed by Chuck Jones.
Is this the one that starts off with evil scientist?
Boo.
Boo.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bugs is asleep in his bed, and his hole gets flooded. The hole gets flooded because of a rainstorm. The mattress, pops up and gets floated downstream to just outside the castle of an evil scientist. Yes, yeah. And obviously he uses a fishing hook to, get picked up off the mattress, because this evil scientist is trying to find a brain for his masterpiece, his robot, and all hell breaks out. And Bugs wakes up and realizes that he's on a table about to get dissected. He got his head opened and takes off through the doors, and he's like, delays, nothing but delays, right? And he opens the door to the dungeon where Rudolph is waiting, and he tells him, "There's a rabbit loose in the castle, Rudolph. Bring him to me, and I shall reward you with a spider goulash." Like, and
Yes.
the monster is like, and he takes off, right? You're running for him, right? And and I'm not going to go into the entire thing, but I mean, I know too late, but I mean, chaos ensues, and he's chasing Bugs to the castle, and he gets thwarted, and at this point, Bugs is invisible, because he pours his hair vanishing tonic on himself, and then he reappears because the scientist pours the hair restorer on him, from the top of the cabinet, and
As you do.
as you do, right? And everyone does that, right? And
I need some of that.
at this point, don't we all? Except Jim.
No, we don't.
And at this point, Rudolph is shrunken down to, pint size, and he grabs a hat and coat and the suitcases and moves into the mouse's lair, and with a sign on the door saying, "I quit," right? And then he pours the hair restorer on him and onto Bugs, and he says, the evil scientist says, "Never send a monster to do the work of an evil scientist," right? He says, "Now be a cooperative little bunny and let me have your brain." Just very measured, very sort of, like menacing kind of thing. He's like, "I'm sorry, Doc, but I need what little I've got," right? And he takes off, right? So that whole thing, that whole cartoon for me was just classic. And this was going to be number 2 on my list. But so I just thought it was hilarious from like start to finish. Just
Does this one also have the bit where when Rudolph throws out the mouse, where the mouse kind of looks and says, has his bottle
yeah.
XXX,
Where
and
he
goes, "I quit
goes,
too."
yeah, you're right. He goes, "I quit too," and he drops the alcohol and he takes off, right? Because Rudolph has just had it, like he's been shrunken down to nothing. So what good is he as an evil monster, right? Which he's not, right? But even that scene where where they first meet, right? Bugs and Rudolph, and and he realizes he's over him, right? He's like, "Oh, think fast, rabbit." And he goes into the routine like, "My stars, wherever did you get that awful hairdo? It doesn't become you at all." And I'm not going to go into the whole thing because I'm too comfortable actually doing that kind of a voice. I'm not going to do, but I mean, it's that whole, that whole thing is just hilarious, right? These days it would be like in bad taste, or to some people, but back then it was fun, it was comical, and it was adult comedy. Like you said, these cartoons were not meant for children, in terms of, without parental supervision in the theater, right? But that whole cartoon from start to finish
It's brilliant.
A masterpiece.
Yes.
A
Oh yeah.
masterpiece. You know, evil scientist, boo. You know, like, come on. I mean, you know, just, anyways, that's my number 8. Water, water every hair.
Man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through this entire list without crying from laughter. Just thinking about, what's coming and the lines. It's just,
Yeah. Well, that's
I've just never grown up, apparently.
don't.
Neither have I. Yeah.
Don't. It's a lot of fun not growing up, believe me. I'll be 54 this week, and no, let's be kids.
Your pups, all of you.
Oh,
You don't know what
please.
real life's about, you whelps. What's your whining?
I'll be 54 in 2 days. Give me a break. So,
Well, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Early.
In
thank you.
advance.
Thank
And by the time this airs, you'll be even older. How do you think about that?
you. Carrying on. Okay, moving on. Let's go. I hate it. How's that? All right. Down to Chad for his number 7.
I will introduce this just to see if I can make Jim laugh with a line from the cartoon. Hey, Granny, I brought you something to have. I probably just butchered it, but you get the idea. So my number
I
7
totally got it.
is Little Red Riding Rabbit, 1944. Yet another Friz Frayling. I think I'm on a pattern here with Friz for the next few, but yeah, just sort of like a fractured fairy tale, right? It's Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah,
Although this
I know the
Little
one.
Red Riding Hood is a Bobby Soxer. Not the brightest young lady, apparently. And sort of traipsing through the forest and wants to bring a nice meal to her granny, who, by the way, is working the swing shift at Lockheed.
As you do back
1944.
then. Yep.
Yeah,
Love it.
right. We're dead in the middle of World War II there, so
Mhm.
timely and of its time. And of course, there's the big bad wolf, right? And then he tries to take advantage of things, but Bugs gets him in the end. And one of the other things that I remember from my childhood, never would have known this song if it wasn't for Bugs Bunny, but put on your old gray bonnet with the blue ribbon on it, right? Super popular song apparently, and
Yeah.
didn't know what that was, but as a kid, like, sang it all the time.
This
Okay.
is one that ends, doesn't it end with Bug saying, I'm gonna do it. I may hate myself, but I'm gonna do it, right?
Yeah. Yes, I think so.
And I'm just gonna leave it like that.
Okay. Okay. You see, I'm trying to place it again, but
Oh, it's that girl. Oh,
Oh, her
perfectly
voice.
annoying. Oh,
Yeah.
and yeah,
oh, okay,
Mel Blanc.
okay, okay,
Was that
okay,
June
okay.
Foray or was that Mel Blanc that did the voice?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
June Foray did all the female voices for the Looney Tunes. Yeah, I think I know the one now. When you mentioned Red Riding Hood, okay. It's okay, we won't go there. All right.
No, too much time.
No, it's true. All right, Jim.
Number 7
Yes,
to
sir.
me. So this is one of the ones where I think I might raise some hackles out there. Um, Especially for me, who is a avowed Chuck Jones enthusiast. I'm kind of surprised this one ended up where it did, but given how I was ranking him at the time, it just felt like the right place to put it. Number 7, Chuck Jones, 1957, What's Opera Doc? Now, I love What's Opera Doc from just the standpoint of the artistry, the direction.
Mhm.
Maurice Noble and Philip Degard just go absolutely ape on taking every opera motif they've ever seen in their lives and just exaggerating the bejeepers out of it. Um, and of course, just the whole setup, you know, Elmer and Bugs in a frickin' Wagner opera. Um, it is an artistic masterpiece, but if I want to laugh, this is not the one I go to. But it's so good. It's so good that it deserves to be in the top 10 because it's just so creative. And the funny moments that are in there are funny. There's just ones for me that are funnier. Um,
Okay.
you know, the this cartoon took, Chuck Jones says it took about 6 times as much to produce as other cartoons. and they would beg, borrow, and steal from the production schedules of other cartoons that his unit was doing to put into this one. So, you know, if they normally allowed 7 weeks to do a cartoon, they would do a Roadrunner cartoon in 4 weeks and steal 3 of those weeks and put it into, you know, What's
Okay.
Opera Doc. And they would do that with, you know, I think there were a lot of other cartoons that were in that era from Chuck that are pretty much turnkey kind of things. So Roadrunner, Sam and Ralph, Pepe Le Pew, you know, things that were pretty easy to kind of do and get laughs out of. So
Yeah.
that's how they built the What's Opera Doc um, cartoon, just beg, borrowing, and stealing time from other ones. Um, I love it. There's a part of me that feels bad that it's at number 7, but then I think of all the ones that never even made it into the top 10. It's like, you know, I go on in life. I'll carry this little guilt and just move forward with things.
Okay. Okay. Well, okay. Good choice. Good choice. My number 7 is Hillbilly Hare. Robert McKimson directed 1950. This is where Bugs finds himself in the South, and he runs into 2 hillbillies, Pumpkinhead and I forget the other guy's name, the brunette. You know, they're brothers. You know, and he basically has to outwit the hillbillies in this one, and
And how hard is that?
not very hard. You know, I mean, who in that, you know, like tying knots in the you know at the in the gun, right, so that he can't shoot, right, and the bullets just being, you know, the buckshot there is just being waiting to be released, right, and you get, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's just hilarious, and then you see Bugs, you know, gender bending, you know, and getting dressed up in drag, you know what I mean, and they fall for him, right, and you know, square dancing in the barn kind of a thing. It's just like, it's hilarious, right? And then, you know, he takes over the Bugs takes over the you know, call out for the, you know, square dancing and with the fiddle and the hat, and they fall for it. I mean, you know, pull his beard, hit him with the posts, and all that kind, you know. And before we started taping, this was, I mentioned, this was one of the episodes or one of the cartoons that in recent years has been cut down to basically nothing. All of the violence, quote unquote, has been edited out. And it's like, why? I mean, you're whizzing on a Picasso kind of a thing in terms of that, in terms of the result. There was nothing. This cartoon is like 7 minutes and 5 seconds or something like that. I think it's been whittled down to like 650 or something like that, or 630. And the amount of stuff that's been removed, it's a travesty. It's a fantastic cartoon. It is a cartoon. Let's not forget that. You know, it's
Yeah.
not real life. I mean, they do walk away. You know, you know, and but the fact that he's able to outwit these 2 intellectual beings, and you know, have them walk off a cliff, and you know, and land in a brook, like, you know, down at the bottom of a cliff, you know, it's it's hilarious. So yeah, that's my number 7, Hillbilly Hare.
I don't know how we survive, gentlemen. To be brought up in such a torturous environment with such heinous examples of wanton violence. I mean, I
I was always dropping anvils on my friends' heads, weren't you guys? I mean,
exactly,
Yeah, I was always sticking
exactly.
dynamite sticks in my brother's pants and watching them blow up. You know what I
I was
mean?
always pulling out a revolver and saying, "Well, now I've seen everything." Bang, and that
You
was
know,
that.
yeah, and the gun said Acme on the side of it. You know, I mean, like, come on. I mean, like, but you know what? We're not one to gossip, so you didn't hear that from us. Um, but my final statement on that is, I think we've been politically corrected into a stupor, and I think it's a bit overkill myself. But what do I know? I know nothing really. Okay, continuing on, number 6, down to Chad.
Thank you. Number 6, 1945's Hair Trigger, another first Freeling. This marks the first appearance of Yosemite Sam in a Looney Tunes cartoon. Yosemite Sam is my third favorite character. It goes Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and then Sam. Just love him. I don't know why. As a kid, I always just sort of connected with, his I don't know. Um, what's the word I want? His
Calm
frustration.
demeanor.
Yeah, exactly. His calm demeanor, and I think like just his frustration of wanting to be a big shot, and
Yeah.
nobody taking him seriously because of his diminutive stature, let's say, right? Which Bugs, by the way, calls him out on constantly. But this is the one where he decides to rob a train. Bugs is on the train, and of course, has to stop him. Funniest part of this one for me is when they finally meet up in an empty train car, and they, sort of do the the cowboy walk with the
Yeah.
spurs up to each other with the hands on the 6 guns, and Sam says, "All right, Rabbit, I'm giving you exactly 1 second to draw a gun." And Bugs, of course, whips out a notepad and a pencil, and draws a gun.
How's
Shows it
that,
to
Doc?
him.
It's like, sir,
Sam
that's a
goes,
mighty fine drawing there, partner. And, you
"I'm
know,
fair to middling with a pencil myself." And he
oh,
tries
And
to
then
yeah.
draw
doesn't he
one.
get like on the floor and he's like got
It's
his
on the
tongue
floor.
sticking out trying to.
He's got
And
his
the Bugs
tongue
Bunny
sticking
looks at it and
out.
goes, it stinks.
It stinks. Yeah,
Just
exactly. But the other thing too is the music during that whole laying on the floor, tongue sticking out, trying to draw. It's you can see his hand moving, and it's going do 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 do, like
that
it's like
note.
a
Yeah.
sour note. And then when he finally gets it right, it's like ah, it's too funny. And another line that I still use sometimes to this day, and my wife and daughter look at me like I'm crazy, but I'll say, "So long, Screwy. See you in St. Louis."
Yeah. Yeah. And then gets pulled up by the ears, and yeah, no. Good one. Good one.
Nice, nice
All
one.
right.
Wow,
Jim.
I'm gonna have to revisit that one. Number 6 for me. So this cartoon has the distinction of being the only black and white cartoon on my list, and B, being I think being the second longest Warner Brothers cartoon ever made. The longest one is the color one where Porky sits with Uncle Sam, and Uncle Sam, is telling him about why America needs to win the war and be a good patriot and all that. That's the longest Warner Bros. Cartoon ever made. This is the second one, which is directed by Frank Tashlin, a name that doesn't get out there a lot, and it's called Porky Pig's Feet. Now, the name doesn't probably ring any bells, but if I tell you that it's about Daffy and Porky trying to escape the Broken Arms Hotel, then I'll bet you know exactly what cartoon I'm talking about.
Yes.
Um, the direction on this is absolutely wild. You know, the falling down the stairs by the hotel manager is one of the greatest visual gags in Warner Bros. Thing, and also probably Mel Blanc's greatest performance in Warner Brothers cartoons of just the sound of him falling down the stairs.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the very end of it when he comes back up in like a microsecond and screams, "What?" Um, there's just so many great sight gags in here. The
Yeah.
direction is really wild. It's fast. It's crisp. Um, a lot of times where things are going, but it's still so funny to see it all happen. Um, and this cartoon also has, I think, one of the greatest cameo endings of any Warner Brothers cartoon.
Where they're in the room and they're locked up and
Yeah.
They
Oh, don't
call a
spoil it.
certain someone.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I know who get out of this. Um, so yeah, it really surprised me that this
yeah.
ended up as high on the list as it did, and also surprised me it ended up over What's Opera Doc. But this cartoon is just so damn funny.
Oh
I
yeah.
just really, I just laugh at this thing just even thinking about it. Um, Porky Pig's Feet, directed by Frank Tashlin. find it, get ready to laugh because man, is it just a hoot.
Yeah. No, it's I actually forgot about that one too. There's a bunch of them I'm forgetting about tonight. My God. Oh my goodness. Excuse me, guys. Itchy eyes. No, it's a good choice. It's a good choice. Mine number 6 is Dog Gone South. Again, Chuck Jones makes an appearance on this list. I didn't realize how many Chuck Jones cartoons are on here. 1950. This is, Charlie the dog, who's always trying to
Yeah.
find a home. I can be your dog and you can be my master. And he's in the little old South. He's trying to find a home and comes across this plantation and this colonel who, is, staunch Southerner and, doesn't want a Yankee on his property and starts shooting him when he sees anything to do with the North referenced, and he's got his dog Belvedere, and it just, you hear, and Charlie realizes he's got to get rid of Belvedere in order to get, to be able to become, this guy's dog, right? So he tries to trick Belvedere at one point. He's like, Belvedere, come here, boy. And you think it's the master calling him, but he's not. So Belvedere at one point is beating the crap out of who he thinks is Charlie the dog, but it's actually his master, right? And and just it's just hilarious. Anyway, by the end of the cartoon, he agrees to have him as his dog, and then this other Southern gentleman comes in and says, "Oh, mighty fine dog there, Colonel. I'd spoil a dog like that to bits. Like lots of love, lots of pampering." So then Charlie gets lured away by this guy, like this other gentleman. So he's being carried off. Let's go home, Father. I'm tired. That kind of thing. He goes, I want moonlight serenades and alcohol rubs. And he's like, oh, by the way, where is my new home? And he's like, there. And he kicks him right in the ass, right into the, boxcar that he came from, the same train that he came from. And then you hear, oh, Belvedere, come here, boy. And it's Belvedere in the costume, right? And he whips off the costume and ends with them singing, Good Times in Africa and Look Away Down South in Dixie, right? It's hilarious. It's like unreal, like from start to finish. And any cartoon that Charlie the dog is in, it's hilarious because he's the tramp that's looking for a permanent home, but he's always looking to try and beat someone down in order to get it, right?
Yeah, I'd forgotten
He's
about that one.
he's always
Yeah.
thwarted in the end. He never gets what he wants, right? So I didn't mean to do the voices. I'm sorry, but it's
You
I
got
love
to.
the voices. Yeah.
oh Belvedere, come here, boy. It just I'll do that. And Bob, well, like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, oh, it's cartoons. You got to get into it, But yeah,
That's true.
that's my number. That's my number 6, Doggone South. It gets
Have
better
to
from there
resurrect
on.
that one.
You forgot about that. Oh, no, it's a good one to go back and watch. All right, we must carry on, ladies and gentlemen. Down to Chad for his number 5.
All right. Just a word about availability of some of these cartoons. I don't have the DVDs or the sort of physical media collections for these, so I started out by I subscribed to Max, and they have probably 70% of everything from the 30s all the way through the 60s or 70s. I haven't really gotten that far yet, but there are some glaring absences in their lineup, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it has to do with licensing or music or rights or whatever. But I
Probably.
did find, and Armando, I can share this link with you if you wanted to put it in the show notes.
Sure.
The Internet Archive has a page that has basically every Merry Melodies cartoon ever. Streamable. Yeah.
Sweet
So
Jesus. Okay.
yeah, including some of the banned ones and the wartime ones, and all the things that people may not have seen. So
Yeah, sure. I'll put it in the description.
yeah, I'll email it to you when we're done. But my number 5 is Rhapsody Rabbit, and I'm seeing a little bit of a thread here, and you'll see the thread as I go through the rest of my picks. But music was such a big part of my life as a kid, and Looney Tunes obviously kind of, tied that together. So any of the ones and any of the cartoons that really focused on some sort of performance or some sort of musical motif or whatever really resonated with me as a kid, and still do today. So this is 1946. It's a Frizz Frailing. Um, the funny thing is, after the opening credits, Wagner's Funeral March from Siegfried plays, sort of as the credits fade into Bugs walking on stage to play piano, and you see him in this sort of, tux with tails, and he walks up to the piano and he sits down,
Okay.
and this guy just has this coughing fit in the audience.
Yeah.
So Bugs, the first two times, Bugs is kind of patient. He's like, "Okay, are you done?"
On the
Sort of
third
gives him a
time.
look. And the third time, he whips out a pistol and shoots him.
You won't be seeing that on Saturday mornings.
Oh, I
Actually, you
think
used to. You used
You
to.
used to.
that
Exactly.
one's
And look how we
still
turned
on
out.
HBO, or still on Max. That was one of the ones that wasn't missing, incidentally.
Yeah.
So anyway, so after he shoots the poor guy in the audience that's got an allergy attack or something, he proceeds to play Franz Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody number 2. But in the middle of this, a little mouse peeks out from the innards of the piano and starts to interrupt Bugs, and then Bugs just becomes like manic trying to catch the mouse and get him to go away or whatever. But the interesting note here is toward the end, he goes from playing Liszt to just this awesome rollicking boogie woogie piano part at
Right.
the end, and
Yeah.
he gets so into it that he kind of loses himself for a minute there before the whole thing sort of circles back, and then they finish the classical piece. So just great. Just the whole sort of cycle of this cartoon in the 7 minutes is just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I remember that one. Oh my God. Yeah. No.
And just
Okay.
the physical comedy with Bugs jumping on the keyboard, and he picks up all the keys off the keyboard and then just like throws them into the air, and they just sort of cascade back down into place. Like,
Yeah.
just great visuals to go with the
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
Yep.
No. Little side note. There was nothing like these cartoons. I'm sorry. Um, as primitive as they may look in terms of their design and whatever, nothing beats them in my book. I'm sorry. I mean, nothing. But that's my very humble opinion. All right, Jim.
Number 5, we are staying in a musical motif, which also happens to be a classical motif. Um, there's so many ways to try to approach this. So I spoke at the very beginning about baseball bugs, about how Frelling kind of unlocked that template of
Mhm.
the innocent bunny beset upon by goons, and how Chuck Jones kind of perfected that model. And Chad, you were talking about that, of course, with the Alibama. Um, but this one to me is the one that just um, pardon the pun, hits all the right notes, and it's Long-Haired Hair from 1949. Um, if you're not familiar with long-haired hair, if I say Giovanni Jones, then you're probably going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Um,
Leopold.
exactly,
Leopold.
Leopold, the conductor. Sorry. Go
exactly.
ahead. Okay, go
Well,
ahead.
now I have to do 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. She dances all day long. I mean, just
Pretty
when
good.
Bugs is
Pretty
just
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
torturing the
Yeah.
poor guy. I mean, banjo, harp, tuba. It's just Bugs at his most
Oh, Mr.
chaotic.
Jones, Mr. Jones.
Exactly, exactly. And hey, it's acoustically perfect.
Oh my.
There's just so many great things about this one. I mean, and the conductor sequence at the end with Leopold is just perfect. Just how Jones and Michael Maltese came up with all this stuff about the hand and the wiggling finger motion, and of course, just the opera singer just going on with the note that just lasts forever. Um,
Yeah.
it's just absolutely nuts. This one, uh, so spoiler alert, the whole rest of my list is Chuck Jones. I could have done the entire top 10 of Chuck Jones if I wanted to, but I really wanted to throw some variety in there. Jones's key poses, how animators and directors, they don't draw the entire cartoon. For those who don't know, they'll come up with key frames or key poses that the rest of the animators sort of work from. And so just all these wild expressions that you see, the characters have, especially Giovanni Jones. I mean, that's what Chuck Jones would draw, and then the animators would just move from, pose to pose. Um,
Mhm.
and these are just some of the best key poses that I've seen
Yeah.
Chuck do, whether it's Giovanni being frustrated or Bugs just being, very slyly coy as the conductor.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely brilliant. And I think the fact that we all started laughing and just kind of, riffing on this thing as we talked about just is a testament to how strong and visceral and effective this cartoon is in getting out the message. But yeah,
Sorry.
long-haired hair is just brilliant.
Yeah. No.
Yep.
No. No. Okay. Okay. We must continue. Okay. And just looking at my list, spoiler alert, I've got two Robert McKimsons, and the rest are Chuck Jones.
Please continue, sir.
Sue
Yeah.
me, darling, sue me. All right. My number 5 is Baby Buggy Bunny.
Ooh, good one.
Oh my God. Featuring none other than Babyface Finster,
Finster.
Yes.
otherwise known as Anthill Harry, otherwise known as Babyface Finster.
With the tattoo, shaving in the
Exactly.
bathroom.
And the
Exactly.
cigar.
Where Babyface Finster holds up a bank and takes off. This guy's like 7 foot nothing. You realize he's a bloody, 2-foot dwarf on stilts. Okay. And he jumps out, he runs out, people are like, oh my God, he's got a gun. And next thing you know, he's in this baby carriage with the money and with the bonnet on his head, like whatever, like baby face, whatever, like dough face, whatever. And then the carriage ends up rolling down the hill, and the bag of money ends up in obviously Bugs Bunny's hole, and chaos ensues from there. So he has to get the money back, right? So he writes this letter saying, like, can you look after this, my poor baby, Finster, and then you see the second note, get him inside, you dope, don't you realize it's cold, whatever. So he takes him in, and the rest of the cartoon is him trying to get that bloody money, right? And then he attacks Bugs at one point, trying to knock him out and get the money, right? When he puts in the bed, he turns off the light, all of a sudden you see all these like words, pow, poof, whatever, like because he's being hit. And he finally gets in the bed, and then he turns on the TV and he realizes, he gets the news flash. Have you seen this man, Babyface Finster? Da, 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 da. Although he sees him smoking a cigar and shaving in the bathroom through the keyhole. Finster shaving at his age and tattooed and smoking a cigar, like just dumbfounded, right? And then when he realizes who he is, he goes into the routine like, oh, Finster, baby. Oh, there you are, you naughty little baby. And you start shaking the crap out of him, right? How many times have I told you not to play with that dirty money? Like just shaking him like to shit. And he goes, oh, it just has to tighten him up. And he throws him in the washing machine, brings out this baby and goes, oh, nice enough to be kissed. He throws him up in the air. He's like, oh, I do believe I've forgotten my fudge. And the guy hits the ground. Chaos breaks out, right?
Yep.
And, obviously Bugs is not going to get outwitted by this guy, right? So then he turns into the cops, and he gets 99 years in prison. But he's basically put in a playpen with an abacus, like on the bars, and he's like freaking out. I've been robbed. I've been framed. I need a new mouthpiece, and then Bugs Bunny is like, oh, don't be such a spoil sport, crybaby. 99 years isn't forever, like
Yep.
comedy at its best, physical comedy in cartoon form at its best. Okay. I'm
Yep.
sorry, guys. I went on about the cartoon, but you know what? It is a bloody classic.
It is.
And
Totally
I
is.
mean, I had to put this in. There was
Oh yeah.
coming up with this list a few weeks ago. This had to be on the list. And I'm surprised it's at number 5. But I mean,
Well, I'm grinning like an idiot because I'm picturing that scene where Finster is in the high chair and he's like, jumping and moving the high
yeah.
chair throughout the Bugs's hole, and it's just this mischievous grin on his face that Chuck Jones is so
Whatever that
perfect
guy-
at doing. Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, it's hilarious. All right. Okay. Back down to Chad for his number 4.
All right, so the rest of mine are gonna all be Chuck Jones as well, and I just went back and counted, and I'm 5 Friz Frailings and 5 Chuck Jones in my top 10, but just totally, by accident. But it speaks volumes, I guess. Yeah.
Bob Clampett represents. Yes.
Well
Okay.
done, well done, both of you, for stepping outside of the usual. All right, so my number 4, back to another musical, but Rabbit of Seville, 1950, Chuck Jones. Bugs and Elmer do Rossini's Barber of Seville.
Oh my God. Classic.
Yeah, and I didn't notice this ever until I read notes on the episode or the cartoon, but Bugs actually, for the first time ever, has 5 fingers in the animation because they needed to match the music when he's kneading Elmer's head in the barber chair. So they
I
had to
didn't
add a
notice
finger.
that. Okay.
Yeah, I never
Yep.
noticed it either. It was in the Wikipedia article, I think, or some other website. Did some reading on some of these just to get some backstory.
I love
Um,
Wikipedia.
oh, me too, me too. There are synopses and really good data on pretty much every Looney
Oh
Tunes
yeah.
Oh
cartoon
yeah,
ever on
definitely.
Wikipedia, so it's a great resource. And one of the funniest things for me, and I recognize this even watching it as a kid, but the poster on the venue at the beginning of the cartoon has 3 names, and it's Eduardo Seltzeri, Michele Maltese, and Carlo Jonesy, which are of course Italianized versions of the producer, who was Edward Seltzer, the writer Michael Maltese, and director, of course, Chuck Jones.
Uh,
And if you look back on some of the other cartoons, and again, as a kid, don't think I really paid attention to this, but as I was reviewing all of these, doing such academic research for this episode, basically watching cartoons all weekend.
Good man.
Yeah.
you got my vote.
So many of the signs in the background have names of people associated with the production, whether it's a play on somebody's name or whether it's literally just somebody's, it's like the McKimson Saloon or something, like, if you look
Yeah.
closely, there's so
Yeah,
many
there are
call outs to
references
folks.
all
Yeah,
over the place.
it's great. It's just great.
Mhm.
Lots of Easter eggs, or Easter eggs, should I say.
Yeah.
Hey, look what you
Hey.
did there.
Good
Wow.
call. Good call.
Th-
Okay.
this one just missed my list, Chad. I it kills me to have left that one off. But yeah, that's a great
Rabbit
one.
of Seville. Oh my God.
Rabbit of Seville is just
Oh
hysterical.
my sweet Jesus.
Welcome to my shop. Let me save your mop. Let me cut your crop.
Daintily. Yeah, I know. I know. I please.
We all know it.
Yep.
There's
Get me
no
going.
denying it.
Don't get me going. All right. Moving on to Jim, the man of the hour.
Tower of Power.
Well, hey, let's go with that.
Okay.
So my number four is something we've talked about before, and that is One Froggy Evening. It is, keeping with the musical theme, of course. There are many things about One Froggy Evening that are brilliant. And kind of going back to what I was saying before, about Jones's key poses, this is another one where it's just absolutely memorable, whether it's the construction worker, whether it's the future construction worker, whether it's the frog, whether it's the talent agent, the cop. I mean, they all have these expressions that are just, when I was a cartoonist, Chuck Jones's expressions were just emblazoned in my skull, and all those sort of like side eye, weird mouth things just always kind of kept in my brain, and I emulated that as many times as I could get away with. Um, but the thing that I think makes One Froggy Evening particularly brilliant is that there is zero dialogue in this cartoon.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's
It's
right.
all music and it's all singing, or the crowd stampeding in for free beer. Um,
Yeah.
that's all that it is. And Chuck was one of the inspirations for this, was that he was really embracing the style of another animation studio during the day called United Productions of America, which is, I think all the animation freaks know it as UPA. And their whole shtick was doing, cartoons that were just basically short stories. There wasn't like a canon of characters. I mean, the UPA eventually did Mr. Magoo, and they did several Mr. Magoo cartoons, but a lot of the UPA stuff was these individual short stories. And Chuck was really taken by that. And that was one of the, as he started to think about that and process it, that's where he came up with, um, a lot of his later Looney Tunes cartoons kind of followed that model where they just didn't fit in with anything else. But
Yeah.
One Froggy Evening is probably the most successful of those. And like What's Opera Doc, it's usually in any Looney Tunes fan's top 5
Yeah.
because it's just so well done and works on so many different levels. Um, I met Chuck Jones once, and shared with him how my dad and I would just watch One Froggy Evening on Saturday mornings when it would come up on the Bugs Bunny show, and just how we enjoyed it together, and really laughed at it. And he got a big kick out of that.
Yeah.
So that's a nice memory I have from my one time of meeting Chuck Jones, and that was a lot of fun.
That's good. That's a good
That's
memory.
cool. Yeah.
I mean, just a little brief tangent. Um, these cartoons to me are timeless. And I remember when I was watching them when I was like 7, 8, 9, 10, I always knew that I would be watching these cartoons for the rest of my life in some form or another, right? Because they're just that good. And right now they bring back memories. That's for you,
Mhm.
right? That's for you. So that's my little brief tangent, guys. Sorry. My
And
number,
what's interesting about it, though, if I may, Mr. Venditti, is that even
yes.
though they're timeless, so much of it is of its time. You know, Bobby Soxers, put out that light. There's all these things that are
Yeah, like,
very
okay.
much, tied into popular culture at the time. But the thing is that it's still funny even today,
Yeah.
even though the specific cultural reference may have been lost.
Yeah, and I find it very interesting how, because I try to get my nephews to when they were younger to watch them, and it was lost on them. They couldn't get into it, and I was just like, my God, we're in trouble. I feel like we're in trouble. If you don't find this funny, we are in trouble. I could not believe it, but no, you're right. You're right. I agree with you. I agree with you. All right. Our next one for me, my number 4, is My Bunny Lies Over the Sea. Another Chuck Jones directed cartoon from 1948. This is where Bugs Bunny ends up in Scotland,
Yes. Yes.
the bagpipe player. And he comes up, he goes, you know, he's thinking he's in Los Angeles. And he's like, this doesn't look like the La Brea Tar Pits to me. And he was like, that classic line, I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque and or Corky as he calls him. Um, it's just hilarious, the the Scotsman with the bagpipes and him running to rescue that old lady in trouble and beats the crap out of the bagpipes, and you know then they go into the competition of playing golf or You know, like
Yep.
it is hilarious. You know, and he beats him. He Bugs beats the Scotsman, right? He goes, "Oh, but you still cannot beat me at the pipes." You know, and he comes out playing the bagpipes, right? And Bugs Bunny leaves, exits the frame. He's like, try and top that. And Bugs Bunny comes out with a whole band, right? Like with cymbals on his feet and the bagpipes and the horns blowing and the whole bit. I mean, classic is just simply classic.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why it's number 4, you know, for me.
Good one.
So, all right. On to number
So
go
before
ahead.
before we start, so we're getting into our top 3.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bet money that maybe the that our top 3 match, Chad, but I would not be surprised.
I wouldn't either, except for the fact that yours are ranked and mine are not. But maybe just by happenstance,
Well,
I
yeah,
just haven't gotten to your favorites yet, or your top ones yet.
and it's
Oh,
odd to me that my top 3 are all from 1953. So maybe that's a giveaway that they're
Ooh,
not all
mine
equal.
are not from 1953.
Oh,
Not
neither are
any of
mine.
them. Yeah,
Neither are
one of
mine.
them's a repeat, by the way, but we'll get there.
I love it. Oh, this is going to be great.
There's been a few like crossovers in terms of repeats and stuff, but
Hmm.
that's to be expected, right? So,
Yeah.
all right, ladies and gentlemen,
Absolutely.
we're in the home stretch here. Our top 3 down to Chad.
All right, my number 3, incidentally, is the first in the Hunting trilogy. So this is 1951's Chuck Jones masterpiece, Rabbit Fire, which is
Yeah.
the first appearance, or the first instance, I should say, of the whole Wabbit season, Duck season gag,
Mhm.
featuring Elmer Fudd and Daffy Duck. I don't know what else there is to say about this one, except that if you haven't seen it, you're not a Looney Tunes fan. This is prime cartooning right here.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
there were 3 cartoons. Like you said, it was a trilogy, right? That set up this whole story kind of a thing, storyline. Yeah, no, it's a good one. It's a good one.
That is a good one. Yeah. My trouble is I tend to jumble 2 of them together. I mean, one is set in winter, and it's very easy to kind of remember how distinctive
Yes.
that one is.
Yeah,
Right.
But the other 2 are kind of set in the fall or whenever hunting
yeah, yeah.
season is, and
Yeah.
it's easy to conflate the 2. But yeah, I think when we were talking about doing this episode a long time ago, I made a pitch to Armando. It's like, and I might have done it to you too, Chad, or I said, hey, can we just count the hunting trilogy as one cartoon? And you guys are like, no, we can't do that. So
No, we
I'm with you
can
on.
because they all have their own they each have their own distinctive, you know, setting and backstory kind of thing. I mean, yes, it's connected, but it's just funner, more funner, listen, better this way, more fun, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time they repeated a bit, right? The water every hair was actually like a reboot almost of an earlier cartoon featuring a different mad scientist with the monster and the haunted castle, and
Yeah, the mad
they were trying
scientist
Yeah.
different
with
things.
mad scientist with the big lips and the
Yes.
Igor, ooh, that kind of
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I got no,
And
I know exactly what you're talking about. There was a
yeah.
bit of a repeat. There was repeat, like a regurgitation, let's say, of the ideas for the cartoons and stuff. But all right.
Before we leave it, I think it just clarified. So your choice, Chad, was duck, rabbit, duck,
Rabbit Fire.
rabbit fire. Okay,
Yeah,
so
the
rabbit
first
fire.
one in the trilogy.
Yeah, so rabbit fire is the one where it's all the posters, duck season, rabbit season.
Yes.
I think the other one that I was thinking of, and it might be duck, rabbit, duck. It might be the other one. I don't remember. But I just remember the way to distinguish those is that the second one is the one where Daffy's bill gets blown off in all kinds of
Sideways.
obtuse
Yeah.
directions. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
up here, down here, all over the place, and he just
right.
has to move it back into position. I hate you.
Hmm.
That kind of a thing. It's like
Yeah.
Yes.
so. Yeah,
Oh,
keep going into the
despicable.
dialogue. Like so, I always go into the dialogue, and Bob will look at me, and he'll be like, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "It's Bugs Bunny. You don't get it."
Right.
So,
Well, speaking of dialogue,
yes,
dialogue is what makes my number three
yes.
stand out so well. And this is again Chuck Jones. And if I say the words Illudium Fosdex, does that ring any bells with you guys?
Yes.
Um,
I'm
yes.
thinking, okay, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
so the cartoon is Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century. And Duck Dodgers is sent on a mission to find the shaving cream atom, Illudium Fosdex, which I just love because I didn't pick this up as a kid, but obviously Illudium is a takeoff of elusive. And of course, they're trying to find the shaving cream atom, but they can't because it's Illudium Fosdex. You can't even find it. So that just one little piece of dialogue just I think is just so utterly brilliant and so wacky. And then the other piece from this cartoon that stands out for me is when Daffy is starting to explain how they're going to find Planet X.
Yeah.
He says, starting from where we are, we go 33,600 turbo miles due up. And he's talking about space. And again, it's brilliant. You don't catch these things as a kid, but
Yeah.
when
And
you're
yeah.
older and understand vocabulary and physics, it just becomes absolutely nutty how they were able to get away with this.
Yeah.
Um, Jones's direction and staging on this cartoon are just amazingly creative. Maurice Noble and Philip DeGard, I think I mentioned them on the What's Opera Doc, but here
Yeah.
they're just like unleashed with this crazy, sci-fi landscapes and whatnot. And Mel Blanc is just absolute perfection in this
Oh yeah.
cartoon
Oh
between
yeah.
Daffy and Porky and Marvin the Martian. He just
Yeah.
nails it from the very beginning to from the giant eyeball to the big deal at the end.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just
Yeah.
absolutely,
When he kicks him off the little, yeah,
yep,
he pushes him off the what's left of the planet, right?
that's right.
And he's dangling, a big deal, Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So number three, very strong, Duck Dodgers.
Very good. Here we go with the crossing over. My number three is long-haired hare. Um, I'm sorry, this was going to be number one, but you know what? I had to bump it.
Who are you
Fantastic,
going to apologize to? Don't apologize to us.
fantastic cartoon. I mean, Giovanni Jones, come on. I mean, the whole premise is, I mean, we've talked about before, but even that one scene when he's backstage and out comes the Bobby Soxer, Mr. Jones, Mr. Jones, oh, Frankie and Perry are just not in it, just not where it's hanging anymore. I just, whatever, I just love you. And oh my God. And he's signing it with a dynamite stick ring. Is oh, thank you, Mr. Jones. He takes off, exit stage right kind of thing, and gets blown up or whatever. So, and then he comes out as the conductor, Leopold, the whole, just that whole thing, right? I mean, and when he first looks at him on stage and he cracks his knuckles, right?
Yep.
And you're just watching, you're like, oh shit, here we go. Here we go. He's gonna
Here
give
we
it to him with
go.
both barrels. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
just, he has his hand up and to hit that note, and he leaves to go get sign away for the to buy the whatever, the earmuffs, whatever, and he comes back and he puts his hand back up and he just, okay, well, whenever I want to finish this, I'll do it. And he annihilates him, man. So I mean,
Yeah.
classic, just classic. um Again, when he says, of course you realize this means war, when he's tied to the tree, that's it, he's done. He's going to go after him. So yeah, it's
Yep.
number three for a reason. It's 1949 again. Chuck Jones is all over my list except for two of them, but good cartoon is a good cartoon, and this is a fantastic cartoon. So
Yeah.
it's my number three. All right, down to Chad. Where's number two?
All right, this is one of the ones that was not on streaming, and again, don't know why, but I was able to find it on that archive.org page, which was great. So I was able to actually watch the whole thing. But 1957, Chuck Jones, as I alluded to, and it's Alibaba Bunny.
Oh.
Oh, you're killing me. Oh,
Oh God, you go.
So this one has a few great gags for me. Basically, Bugs and Daffy are tunneling underground trying to get to Pismo Beach for all the clams you can eat. Right? But guess what they missed? That left turn at Albuquerque, right? So they end up in the Middle East somewhere in the desert and in the middle of this sultan who's hidden all this treasure in a cave, and he appoints his minion Hassan to guard it. And again,
Hassan?
Hassan Chop. If that's not still in the zeitgeist, it really needs to be. But I mentioned earlier that, like, you get to see this interplay between, Bugs, who turns out to be the more calm, cool, collected demeanor, and then you get Daffy, who just loses his shit at any opportunity, right, at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
And it
on
kind of
account of
happens
I
here.
am greedy.
Yeah. 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 Oh yeah.
Exactly,
Oh yeah.
exactly.
Oh
And
yeah.
Daffy went from like just this wacky duck in his early cartoons to just this just nasty, cheating,
Conniving, no good
conniving.
son of
Yeah,
a. Okay.
exactly. So they get into this whole thing, and just some great lines from Daffy. Down, 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 mine, mine, mine. Just
Yeah,
like,
and then the
what's all
the,
the
the genie explodes. He says, "You have desecrated the spirit of the lamp. You must
and you
face
will
the
suffer the
consequences."
consequences. Consequences, consequences, as long as I'm rich.
As long as I'm rich.
And then he gets fricasseed, basically, right? And
Well, he gets shrunk. So
oh
then,
yeah,
fade to Bugs sitting on Pismo Beach, cracking open clams, and there's a pearl. Ah, what do you know? A poil. And
mine,
here comes
mine.
Daffy out of a hole in the sand, running in, mine, down, 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 mine, mine, mine. And he grabs the pearl and he hugs it and he says,
Yeah.
"I'm rich. I'm a happy miser."
Fade out.
Just
Fade
Brilliant.
amazing. No, it's yeah.
Well, and Bugs goes, "Oh, brother, close sesame," and the shell closes around Daffy as it fades out. Just
Yep.
great animation and just
Yeah, yeah,
great tie-in.
yeah. No, it's it's a classic. That's a
There,
classic.
there two other things, if I can call out about that one, Chad, that I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
love.
please.
First of all, there's Hassan trying to open the cave door, and he's like,
Yes.
open saddle soap, open
Open
septuagenarian.
sassafras. Yeah.
Yeah, all these different words.
Open
Um,
sanctuagenarian or whatever. I mean, like, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And then the scene where um Bugs and Daffy are basically trapped in the bottle, and Bugs is just kind of standing there, and Daffy's just going absolutely berserk, trying to figure out how they're going to get out. And he's like, oh, he's going to grind us into a powder. I think, is that cartoon, or is that a different one? Am I
Um,
thinking of the? Oh, I'm thinking of the
Yeah, I don't think they were in the
Beanstalk Bunny,
bottle.
maybe.
no, I think no,
Bugs is in the
you're
bottle at one
thinking of
point.
another one, and he shows him a key, and then Bug shows him a key, like
Yeah,
how
he's like,
they
calm
get
down,
out.
Daffy. Here's the Acme glass cutter, and then they get out.
Or the
Is
glass
that
cutter, and then he gives him a big kiss on the cheek, kind of a thing. Like,
exactly? Is that? Am I conflating that with a different cartoon?
I
I
think so. I
think
don't
so.
remember it being in that
I think
one.
so. Yeah, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
That's
thinking.
um,
I
that's
think it's
when they're
Beanstalk Bunny.
back in the beanstalk. Yeah, the
Yes,
Yeah,
giant
that's
with
the
one.
one.
Elmer as the giant. Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
I'm getting old. I can't keep these things straight anymore.
Oh, please, cry me a river. Okay, you're fine.
Please, okay.
All right.
Um, number two, still going Chuck Jones. I think I may be repeating myself, but this one, talked about how, when Bugs is beset by bullies, he, rises to the occasion and
Mhm.
overcomes. This is my absolute favorite of those. And, I wanted, I thought about the wrestling one for a long time,
Oh,
but
oh,
The pressure.
as I weighed this one and the wrestling one, I had to go with this one, and it's Bully for Bugs, 1953.
Yes, I love that one.
Yes, once again, just filled with these great key poses and reactions from Jones, um, for the bull and Bugs. And once again, you get the line, of course, you realize this means war as Bugs is being, rocketed out of the little stadium.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he comes back in as the Toreador with the anvil, and
Oh yeah. Oh my
as he
God, yeah, and
does.
he takes over. Oh my God.
And then the whole
What a
ending, it's like, who,
gullible.
who,
Yes.
yeah, what a nincompoop.
Yeah. It's bopped on the head. Boom. Yeah. Like,
Yes,
oh,
exactly.
sorry. I
And
didn't
then
mean
the whole ending, it's like, who doesn't love a good Rube Goldberg device? It's like he could have found a much simpler way to blow up the bull, but no, he has to build this whole ramp and glue and flypaper and match and sandpaper. It's just,
Yeah. Yeah. And all
yeah,
done within like 30 seconds.
it's amazing. Cartoon
Yeah.
physics is
Yeah.
is
That's a good one. That's a good one.
the most interesting of things. Yes, exactly.
Okay, we gotta
Bully
rein
for
this in.
Bugs.
Yeah, we gotta rein this in, guys. Um, my number two is, of course, Rabbit of Seville. I'm sorry, this was going to be my number one, but what's Chuck Jones, 1950. I mean, what else can be said about Rabbit of Seville except it's bloody brilliant.
It is.
Oh yeah.
Just you were saying how in the one Froggy Evening there's no dialogue. There's very little dialogue in Rabbit of Seville if you really think about it, right?
Yep.
But just it flows beautifully. The use of the music that's used, and just it's amazing. It's amazing. And the fact that he runs to the top of the scaffold, like over the stage, and drops him into a cake, head first, kind of a thing, like in the wedding
For the
dress.
Marriage of Figaro.
Yeah, Marriage of Figaro. And then at the end he's like, chewing a carrot. Next, it's like, come on. I mean, it's a classic for a reason, and
It's brilliant.
yeah, no, it's top to bottom, start to finish. It's amazing. That's my number two.
Right.
We're at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. Oh God, one caveat. Go on.
No. I was going to say we're moving on to number one.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say. I'm sorry. I thought you were gonna say I've got 1 point to make. Okay, all right. We
I
are
do
number
have a
one.
point to make, but I'll wait for my turn.
Okay, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're at number one. Down to Chad.
Number one. This is one of the crossovers, the only one I think. But what's Opera Doc? And again, I think we said all there is to say, but the ending line, I think, just still makes me crack up. Well, what did you expect in an opera? A happy ending?
Yep. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's number one for a reason, for you, right?
Yep.
It's
Absolutely. And if I were ranking my list a different way, it would probably be up at number one for me. But
yeah.
yeah, it's awesome.
All right, Jim, you're number one.
So I just want to make one honorable mention because it came to my mind, and
There's the
I can't
caveat.
believe I left this off. I can't believe it.
There's
But
the caveat.
number 10 and a half or 10.1, the Dover Boys at Pimento University, also known as the Rivals of Roquefort Hall, is
Yes.
absolutely bananas Chuck Jones stuff from 1942.
Okay,
And probably
enough for
has,
you.
it is the progenitor of stretch and squish animation taken to its farthest extremes. It is just so, it's absolutely nuts. The Dover Boys. It's
Okay.
another, I mean, Chuck Jones has several cartoons that are just legendary, and I can't believe I forgot this one. What an ignoramus.
What a
The
maroon.
poop. Is that what it's
Exactly. What a
okay?
gullible. All right. So that's my number 10.1. My
Okay.
number one
Yes.
is Duck Amuck, 1953. Conceptually brilliant.
Yes.
It brings Bugs and Daffy just completely front and center, and it's 100% driven by their personalities. It's just, yeah, I just don't know what else to say about it. I mean, I talked a lot before about Jones's, key poses and reaction shots, and the ones for Daffy here are legendary. Um, Michael Maltese's script is just side splitting because it's all Daffy talking. And
Yeah.
again, it's just brilliant. The lines that he gets out there because it captures all the frustration, the absurdity, the narcissism. I mean, everything that Chuck Jones and Maltese developed Daffy into is just on full display here. And God, yeah, Duck Amuck, number one. I don't, in the way I was ranking this list, it was never a contest. Duck Amuck was always going to be number one for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I love that for all the same reasons.
Yeah, it's
Okay, I got to
fantastic.
revisit that one. There's a bunch of them I got to revisit.
Oh,
Luckily,
I,
I've got
I I think I'm just going to have to make like a greatest hits list of all these cartoons we've talked about, all 20 odd number of them, and just watch them consecutively. It's going to be great.
For sure.
There you go. There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my number one. What's Opera Doc? I'm sorry.
We hit the cycle. We all
We
named
did.
it.
Oh, sweet Jesus in heaven. My God. Can we have a moment of like 30 seconds of silence for the brilliance of what is this cartoon? I mean, and I'm gonna say this, when I first saw it as a kid, I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Like very little, just it seemed to, sorry, I'll start again. It seemed that it was just all over the place in terms of idea and story. And the more I watched it, the more I realized this is brilliance. I mean, Elmer Fudd as a Viking, and I'm gonna kill the Wabbit, right? And he's like, you know, going after, the Wabbit hole, and trying to, and he's like, Bugs Bunny comes up, kill the Wabbit. Oh my God, right? So I mean, from the minute it starts to the ending, it's manic. It's manic. I mean, and where else do you see Bugs Bunny in, as a female Viking on a fat horse coming down a mountain just
It's a
coming
brilliant
down
visual.
stairs, like it's just like unreal. And then him singing to Broomhilda, "You're so lovely," yes, I know it, I can't help it. It's just like, come on. And and then they go into return, won't you return my love? It's just like, what am I watching?
Exactly.
Like, forgive my singing voice, but I mean, like, what the hell am I? It's amazing. It is amazing. And he's like, yeah, and then he actually kills the bunny, right? Oh, what have I done? I've killed the Wabbit, and he's crying, carrying him off, into the sunset. And of course, the classic line, what did you expect in a happy ending? I mean, like,
Exactly.
as a kid, I could not make heads or tails of it, right? I could not make heads or tails of it because of what was going on. It was to me as a kid, it was too much information happening at one time. I couldn't,
Yeah.
I couldn't visually digest it, I guess, right? But as I got older, I got to realize that this cartoon is, in my opinion, just flawless. And there's nothing like it in terms of
Right.
the layout and the use of color and just the whole scheme of it. From the minute it starts to the ending, you're off and running. And God help you if you can get to the end without like cracking up or like getting confused or,
Yeah.
and the gender bending, like bugs in a, like done up in drag, with the Viking helmet and the wig. I mean, it's just hilarious. These cartoons were very much ahead of their time in terms of what they were trying to do, right? And very much very adult cartoons. Again, not usually for kids, but
Right.
kids like myself were drawn to them.
Oh yeah.
So
For sure.
I
I
mean,
mean, and yeah, it was so unlike everything else. I mean, watching him on Saturday morning, I picked up the Chuck Jones style. It's like, even though they wouldn't show all the credits, it's like, all right, I can tell the good cartoons are by this guy, so I like this guy's stuff. But
Yeah.
even this one was so radically different from everything else that he did that it was just, yeah, I think the first time I saw it, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here, but it's kind of cool. And I think it probably took me, like the third time I saw it as a kid to just sort of get into the rhythm of it and be okay with the fact that it was radically different.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's anything else like it in the Looney Tunes canon, let's say, like in the list of cartoons. I think it's
Right.
just very forward thinking and very off the map, right? And it works. Every bit of this cartoon works. Nothing is out of place. Nothing is too loony, pardon the pun, to not make sense, not fit in as to what is going on. And I mean, Bugs and Drag, what more can you get? I mean, come on. It's hilarious. So,
He had a lot of practice.
hey, a gay hairstylist and water every hair. You know what I mean? Like, come on. I mean, they were bending the rules. They were pushing the envelope even back then. You know what I mean? And
Right, but that was coming from a tradition of both theater and Hollywood where you
that's
would
exactly
have guys who would, play female roles. And I think it goes back to like, Greek and Roman theater too,
that's
where
exactly it.
all the men would
And
have the roles and,
yeah,
do all that.
and people would say, well, people would say today that that's not politically correct. You know what? Like I've said before, we've been politically corrected into a stupor. And I think we need to, forgive me for saying this, guys, take the pickle out of our collective butts and just laugh a little bit and just let go. As polite as I can say it, So I mean, anyways, I don't have
You really want to leave our audience with that image?
well, think whatever you want, really. I mean, it's our audience is very mature and they understand where I'm coming from. I don't have any honorable mentions. If you guys want to make a quick honorable mention.
I shot that bullet already.
All right.
Jed, do you have one?
I did start with more than 10. Let me see if I can just pull a quick one that I sort of was sorry, that we didn't already talk about. Something that I was sort of sad that I had to leave off. Oh, not a specific episode, but just in general, Marvin the Martian.
Yeah.
The first episode with Marvin and Bugs going to the moon. By the way, way before we actually went to the moon, right? So, speaking of being ahead of its time,
Yep.
but I think that was just a great character. Over the years, it kind of got a little bit corny. But
Right.
the initial iteration of Marvin and his dog. What was the dog's name? Does anybody remember?
Oh,
I think he had a name, right?
I think so. Maybe not. Maybe off
Yeah, I don't,
screen the way,
Yeah, right.
I
Proxima
don't
had a name.
remember. I don't
Sure.
remember
But
that.
anyway, they were just great. I think, I had Marvin on the top 10 and I had to boot him for one of the musical numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, I have one more honorable mention, and I'm kicking myself.
Go on.
Go ahead.
Feed the Kitty.
Sounds
Feed the
familiar.
Feed the kitty.
Feed the Kitty is with Mark Antony, the bulldog, and he wanted the little tiny kitty to keep.
Oh my
Right.
God. Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right.
And he thought that the kitty got, turned into the batter and was baked in
And
the
the
oven.
cookie?
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And he sees his master like cutting out the cookies and he's just like and he
exactly.
faints because he's watching from outside the window and yeah, okay.
Yep. And if folks haven't picked up on that, the scene in Monsters Inc. where Sully is seeing Boo go through the machinery and think that she's being chopped up and whatnot, that comes exactly from that whole scene in Feed the Kitty. That's just the whole emotional thing of it, and the whole, terror of it is all from that. So
Oh no, I
I
get
have
that.
2 honorable mentions. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask this question because we were discussing it before we started taping. I mentioned it before about being politically correct and these cartoons nowadays, or even back into the 90s, etc., being chopped up to basically nothing's left of the original cartoon due to what is considered politically correct or too violent. Or what are your thoughts on the fact that these have been chopped up so overtly? Let's say, I don't know, like just the fact that they've been whittled down to basically nothing. I mean,
I'm looking to Chad.
Well,
To
I mean,
start.
listen, there are things from the past that need to stay there, right? So I feel like it's, there are certain things that were featured, let's just say, in some of the earlier cartoons that were of their time and maybe not appropriate for today. So I think in certain cases I'm okay with it. I don't think I'm okay with censoring the violence. We all made the joke earlier that, we all watch Bugs Bunny cartoons and none of us are serial killers, right?
Yeah.
So if they're taking out a gunshot or taking out some absurd animated violence, I think it's silly.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
I
kind of
mean,
with you on with that, Chad. The first thing you were mentioning are those does that kind of apply to like the censored cartoons, like
Yeah,
Coal Black and the Seven Dwarves, all that kind of thing?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
well,
I'm
yeah,
I'm
I
I'm with
mean,
you also in kind of the violence part of it. And I made the joke earlier about, the gun to the head. And now I've seen everything, and the character shoots himself. I mean, I kind of get why that might be excised. I think that was the first thing that they ended up cutting when these, cartoons were put into syndication. Um, um, but they weren't cut originally because I remember seeing them out there. So it's I got a
yeah,
memory of it from somewhere.
yeah, and I know myself. I'm about to go out and grab a cartoon wooden post and bash someone over the head just for the sake of it, right? It's like,
I knew you had it in you.
oh,
I
I
was just
know,
waiting for that moment for you to
I'm just a
break.
violent individual, right? Um, I think it has to be put in the context of the fact that it is a cartoon. It is not real. Um, it's a talking rabbit. It's a talking duck. It's a talking dog, cow, Martian. I mean,
Hmm.
let me
What
go
are you
get my
trying to
ray.
say?
Let
You're
me
being
go
so
get.
subtle it escapes me.
Let me go get my ray gun, and I can obliterate you too. Like into a thousand particles. And eh, I think that you have to. For me, I prefer watching the cartoons in all their glory. Like from start to finish. Um, just quickly, I know an oxymoron when I say that. But the example for me is the Hillbilly Hair cartoon, where he runs into the hillbillies, and it's literally cut right down. I mean, he goes from running into the one guy, and then you know 2 frames later, they're looking for him with their guns, and then they go into the square dance thing. It's like it's that obvious that it's cut, that it's like, what are you doing? I mean,
Yeah.
it is still a cartoon, and I mean, when I was growing up, my parents monitored what I did in terms of what I watched, and even they knew it was a cartoon. So I mean, they
Yeah.
never stopped me from watching it. And I mean, I'm quite normal. I didn't turn out to like where I'm gonna go off and shoot someone with an Acme gun, or an Acme stick of dynamite. And I mean, I just think that these cartoons are, like you said, are of its time. I think they should have been kept to their original state.
Agreed. And we should all go off and watch Roadrunner cartoons in salute of that.
That's right. That's
I-
right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of another extended edition of the Music Den with an episode of What's Up, Doc. I've said this before, ladies and gentlemen. Jim and I have tried to do abbreviated shows. Um, it's not possible.
It
It
just
isn't.
ain't.
It's not possible. He and I get along so well virtually. Um, I shudder to think what would happen if we actually met in person and tried to do a show together. It'd be like in chapters, you know. We'd have to do it in
I think
chapters.
so.
But I want to thank Jim Bricker for joining me on this episode, and Chad Sutton for jumping in on this and his debut appearance on the Music Den. Hopefully, we'll be doing more episodes together. We'll talk about that if you'd like.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, put down in the comments down below your top 10 or top 20 or top 5 Looney Tunes cartoons. All right. Yes.
I got one last thing to say.
What a surprise. Go ahead.
What a surprise. Chad has his podcast and his channel, which we should give him the chance to discuss
Yes.
and talk about.
Yes.
Where
Please
more,
do.
where more
My
chattery
apologies.
can be found.
My apologies, Chad. Please go ahead and
No apology needed, my friend. I wasn't gonna plug myself, but
Oh,
you
plug
know,
away.
since Jim teed it up, I will. So I
Plug
also
away.
host a podcast, and it's video and audio called Aural Mess, and it's just what it sounds like. It's just a melange of musical topics. I just published my 29th episode a couple weeks ago, and Jim was one of my prior guest hosts. That was a great episode. I suggest you start there and watch that one. We get into some fun topics. But we just talk about anything music. So check it out. It's Aural Mess, Aural. Again, it's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, and all the major podcasting networks.
I'll put a link down in the description for
Thank
your
you.
channel.
Thank you.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you enjoyed again this extended episode of the Music Den, titled What's Up, Doc? Again, put your I'm waiting for Jim to jump in again. Okay. Put your top 10, top 5, top 20, top 3, doesn't matter. Looney Tunes cartoons in the comments below. And we would like to get a dialogue going about our selections and about all of our episodes. And a little side note, Jim and I sincerely want to thank everybody who has watched the concert review that we did on Beat and the comments. I can speak for Jim too, did not expect this much of a reaction and a response to that episode. It was fun doing it. And please, if you haven't seen it yet, please go check it out. All right. So for Chad Sutton and Mr. Jim Bricker, I am Armando Venditti signing off. Again, before we sign off, please click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content we've got coming up. Jim and Ken Cheshire and I are going to be working on more episodes. One in particular, a deep cuts dive into Billy Joel. All right. I've been listening to a list of Billy Joel deep cuts. Sorry, it's been one of those days, guys. That both Jim and Ken have given me to listen to. 24 tracks.
2 from each album. It's not. That's all I'm asking. 2 from each
24
album.
tracks. Go figure. Anyways, please stay tuned for that. We're going to be doing that pretty soon. More ideas knocking around my head, and we'll get them to you as quick as we can. All right. So please look after yourselves and one another. We'll see you soon with another video. Have a good night. Bye for now.